wise potato chips. In Greek mythology, the goddess Athena and Winnie the Pooh.
Potato chips, Greek mythology, Winnie the Pooh. Oh, is it feta cheese?
I love where your head's at, but no. It's the owl. It's the logo for Wise Potato Chips. The wise owl from Winnie the Pooh, and Athena, the goddess of wisdom, war, and strategy. She was often depicted with an owl, known as the Owl of Athena.
Wait, why are we playing this game again?
Ow, because today we're going to talk to our listeners about how they can make sure they're being wise and being proactive at work.
Welcome to the Career Corrective, your career lifeline that gives you laugh lines with Jenny and Allie.
Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. Today, we are continuing our habit series with the most important habit of all, according to important people everywhere from our research, apparently.
Yes.
But we want to make sure that when you're being proactive, you do it like the wise owl. That's what we're talking about today. Strategies, tips, tricks, information to make sure that you go into all of your proactive dreams with these tools.
Yes, and potato chips.
Absolutely. Don't ever forget the potato chips. What about potato chips with feta cheese melted on there and dip them in Greek yogurt?
I was just going to say a feta Greek yogurt dip.
Ooh,
Well,
recipes on the spot.
oh, yeah. I know you've read some research by Sharon K. Parker and Jenny Lau, Claremont University graduate, about wise proactivity. And you've also built some strategies. You talk about what our listeners can keep in mind to make sure they're not only being proactive, but doing it strategically and wisely.
Think about shopping at IKEA.
Oh, I love thinking about that.
If you got a new apartment or a new place to live and you were saying, you know what? I'm going to be proactive. I'm going to go to IKEA. I'm going to get everything I need. It's got great prices and they have so many things all in one spot. I'm going to go. You will get under those lights and you'll get distracted by the cityscape apartment they have set up. The first one on the right, you're going to think, oh, I need to throw everything out in my apartment, or I need to just buy everything in this room, not realizing I didn't measure. I don't know if that couch fits. And then you come out and all the stuff doesn't work. Or meatball and maybe a fork.
Yeah, and tea lights. A whole
Yes.
box of 100 tea lights.
But nothing to put them in.
No.
You're not going to remember the container. And maybe you'll get a Vulcanslager cabinet.
Yes. Or a Guggenheimer.
But you're not going to have anywhere to put that.
No.
It's not the right size. If you think of being strategically and wisely proactive, you're going to get out the old measure tape. You're going to see how much room you have for a little IKEA couch. You're going to think about the big picture. What do I have already? And then make a list of what do I actually need. You're not just going to go into IKEA with no strategy.
I mean, you could, but it's not going to go well.
Right. A little homework up front can save you a headache. It's the same with being strategically proactive at work and in your life. Do this wisely.
Yes.
Then the second thing is that when you go to IKEA, you want to be empathetic. Who do you live with? Do you have pets? Do they need a new pet bed? Do you have a partner? Do they like something to put their feet up on as they watch the old TV?
The old tube.
When they go back in time and they watch Leave It to Beaver, do they want their feet up on an ottoman from IKEA? Maybe put
They
that on
do.
the list.
They also want a tray table so they can put their TV dinner on it.
With the little brownie on it. That's number 2. Putting yourself in other people's shoes is the second step to behaving wisely in your proactive approach. If you're taking on a project at work, don't forget to consider how all of the pieces, your resources that you need, the timelines, how this will affect other people's workflows. If it's a software, then how are they going to use it? What is their use case for the software? Get their input, listen to them. You want to consider the others that this will affect in your being proactive. Then the third thing, and this is really more relevant to IKEA than it is to being wisely proactive, is to pace yourself.
Okay.
I can't tell you how many times I have literally gone in there with the best of intentions and honestly even with the list and the plan, and I still get confused halfway through.
I do too. I end up getting things that I'm like, well, I don't really need it, but I will find a purpose for
Yes,
it.
yes, it's reverse shopping. It's like, what am I doing? I didn't think of this. I didn't need it, but now I have to have it.
Yeah. And now I have
The
to change
IKEA
my
curse.
whole decor
Yeah.
based around this item that I got.
Created more work for myself. And in your work life, you want to pace yourself realistically. If you're thinking about that for your work project, think about what you can actually take on, what you can actually handle with your current workload. I am persona non grata, not pacing myself, but take it from someone who's worked on that and overcome it. Being realistic about what you can do as a part of your plan and mapping out a proper timeline will be crucial, because then you won't burn out too much to be able to continue this amazing approach.
I like this. All right. Before we dive into the steps
Sorry, Jenny. I'm going to just go to IKEA now. That's it for today.
Before we dive into the steps to follow, can you talk to our listeners about incorporating high EQ and self-awareness into their approach?
If we think about the realistic application of this, it's to improve your life at work. Systems, tools, processes, anything you can do to show leadership, to align what you already do, to show leadership that you're adding value from a business perspective. That's what we're aiming to help you with today. Or if it's something that is just important to you, that's great as well. If there's a project that you've been eyeing up at work, this is some good guidance on how to approach it. But we want to make sure that we always remember to bring self-awareness and EQ into anything that you do, because as we've talked about in other episodes, it just makes things go so much more smoothly for yourself. You're proud of your demeanor, behavior, and your capabilities in keeping things in the chaos more calm. And it also encourages others to genuinely want to work with you and participate in what you're leading and what you're trying to accomplish. So just that reminder to, as you're having these conversations, to gain input from others, and as you're listening to how this could affect their workflow, it could make you annoyed or defensive because they have a different perspective and needs than you, and it could conflict with what you want. So just always remember to pause before reacting and to prepare, put those emotions aside, and be as objective and clear and thoughtful as possible. You could think, okay, Harold in accounting really shouldn't have input on this, but he's yapping at me with all of what he wants relating to the new software. Instead of smacking him, pause before you react and tell him that he has no business giving you input. And that takes also putting your ego aside. But ego doesn't mean you're being egotistical. It just means that's your perspective. You have assumptions that we all do, that we carry with us. And you might get some information, even from Harold, that could make the project better. So you just want to go in with an open mind, listen as much as possible. And then as people share what they're interested in as far as this initiative that you're trying to accomplish or this process improvement you're trying to make. As soon as there's a place where your wishes and wants overlap with theirs, encourage them to participate. And a great way to do that is if they say something is important to them and you can genuinely say it'll be part of what you're trying to accomplish, then you have a gift because your needs meet. You can ask them, hey, do you want to take on this piece? It's really important, and get their buy-in that way to join in.
I think that's really great. Okay, listeners, we're going to use HR issues to illustrate how you can take a proactive, wise approach to problem solving. This way, you can take the themes we discuss and apply it to your work. The issues are different depending on your circumstances, of course, but the steps are going to be the same. Starting with step 1, which is figure out what's really causing the issue. Allie, can you talk to our listeners about how to tackle all of that while using high EQ?
Yeah, just do what I said and good luck.
Thanks for joining us today.
Yes, thank you so much. I'll be at IKEA. That's not going to get old. First of all, when you're doing something like this and you're someone who's utilizing the information, you're a part of these workflows. And so you know the stress that all of this causes you. And that just recognizing that for yourself. I'm going to go have these conversations and say, okay, we have high turnover. It's basically whose fault is it? I mean, that's the way. Understanding that, giving the benefit of the doubt. There's this big theme right now where people say, approach it with curiosity and seek to understand. That is so easy to say. It's really talking about bringing EQ and self-awareness into your approach. But the way that I have found success with this is to say, do I want to solve this problem, or do I want to justify my team's part in it? That you can't really do both. Actually,
Right.
There's this old Dr. Phil.
Oh my gosh.
There's this old Dr. Phil.
You got to get it out. You got to get it out. You got to get real. You got to get real.
No. He would say, that is another Dr. Phil thing. But he would say, do you want to be married or do you want to be right?
Oh,
I'll leave aside any thoughts I have on Dr. Phil. That's not the point. But the point is, it's the same thing here. You can solve the problem and put your personal piece aside as you're trying to get to that root cause, or you can bring all of your justifications for your team or whomever you're connected to in this workflow, in these pieces of the process. And not to say that it can't be done, it's going to be a lot more arduous to be able to carry that and get to the bottom of it. And thinking of yourself almost as an outsider to the issues while you're getting to the bottom of it. That way, you can really listen to what other employees are saying and the input that you're getting. One trick that I've used to be able to do this is to say to myself, really one step at a time, when I'm getting feedback or eliciting responses and information from people, I just think, all I'm doing is getting information here. I'm not committing to what I'm going to do with that information. That's not to say that you're not going to go back and synthesize all of it and pick out the pieces that best solve the problem for the most people. It's just an approach, a way to keep focused and objective, is to say, all I'm doing is getting information here. I don't have to buy into anything that's being shared with me. I don't have to solve all of that today. I'm information gathering. That's what I'm doing. Leave it at that for that step.
Okay, that seems very doable. You're taking your ego right out of it. You're just an observer. I love that. All right, let's get into step 2.
Mhm.
Let's look at the whole journey. Picture the employee life cycle from recruiting to onboarding, development, and beyond. Where are the pain points? If new hires are leaving within the first 6 months, it's because the role wasn't clearly explained during recruitment or because they aren't getting enough support once they start.
Whatever problem you're trying to solve or new system or process you're trying to improve, you want to look at that first step was to gain clarity on where the bottleneck is, where the issue is, where things could be improved. Each of these steps build upon the other. This process in HR, you're looking at
Circumstances.
your hiring and your onboarding, ask yourself, how would I feel as the new hire going through this process? Would I feel supported? Would I feel confused? Would I feel overwhelmed? One thing that I used to do when I was doing a software implementation, I would go use the software as an example when we would roll out a new ATS. I would go on as an applicant and
Yes.
just say, what's it like to apply through this ATS? Just take that step back and use empathy to say, well, what's it like for the user? Let me go check it out. It's just such a simple way to put yourself in the shoes of the other end of it. And then you can use that time that you took to complete that process to then speak to it firsthand when you're in a meeting, because a lot of managers and people within the company aren't going to do that. And so you could say, actually, I applied and used this system, and here's what I found as the user to be the issues. When you can speak to it in that way, it's just a nice little way to be able to keep focusing on the data rather than getting caught up in the other pieces that are going to be embedded in there. And then that will also allow you to come at it with compassion, because you understand that changes for all different perspectives, the different managers, the rollout, all the people affected by the rollout, the users, you're keeping
Yeah.
that global perspective in mind. So I think it's just a great way to be able to do that.
Yeah, I agree. And
You can easily extrapolate these tools to your work life. If you're in the hospitality industry, it would be the customers. If you're in marketing, it would also be the customers. If you're in IT, you could probably come up with some technological process improvements that would make things so much better. Manufacturing, there's a whole organizational effectiveness and change management and all these pieces of HR and supply chain and logistics. I mean, these tips that we're giving apply to every work life and every industry. And HR is just, internal stakeholders in the company are our customers, and then applicants are our customers. But these
right,
approaches are for whatever work you're in.
right. Exactly. Okay, I love that one. Step 3 would be to bring everyone to the table. Get input from employees and managers. When you include everyone, you'll design a process that meets the needs of the whole.
Right. Okay. I have I have been in some meetings where this bring everyone to the table. I love this challenge,
Okay.
and I've actually had feedback from people that I've coached where they really have gotten a lot of value out of this area and my approach in it. So take it for what it's worth, but you can go into this bringing everyone to the table step and just know that there's going to be tension.
Okay.
If
Just
you
prepare yourself for it.
I have experienced this consistently throughout my career, and I've helped a lot of people with this. And it can be in the form of, let's just take it down to a simple day to day, bring everyone to the table. If you have an internal customer at your job. It could be your boss, could be project managers, could be people in other departments, whatever function you have. If you're providing them with information or you're providing them with updates, you're partnering on a project together. So in much of my career, it's been all of these HR measurements, and the people in the field are doing they're doing them. They have a business to run. They
Right.
don't really care why there's not applicants or why there's high turnover. They just want it to magically disappear. And I don't blame them. They're busy and this is their perspective. If I went into any meetings when I dealt with these leaders who I know exactly what's going on, I can look at the data before I join the meeting and understand they're not going to be happy because they see dollar signs going out the window if we don't hit our timelines or if there's an issue with the software, whatever the problem may be. So when you think of this bringing everyone to the table step, it's not just for process improvement and being proactive in these larger projects. This is really something that you deal with a lot in your working life, where everyone is coming to the table, because that's what meetings are about. That's what progress updates are about. That's what stakeholder conversations are about. Giving the big hazard signs here that this is a very meaty step. You want to come in thinking, put myself in their shoes to think, what are they facing and what do they want to hear? So let's just say we have a location opening and we need to hire 75 people for it. And the timeline where we're at right now, we should have hired 35 people and we've hired 10. You're going into a meeting where that's the case and you think they're going to be, oh, how's it going? They're going
Right.
to come in fired up. I would always assume that and prepare in that way, not only bringing the EQ into it, but do your homework and really utilize all of the other people's perspective so that you can go in with completely taking yourself out of the equation. Because if you don't get everybody back to center and back to a neutral spot before you try and further your agenda, you're going to be talking to yourself. No one's going to listen.
Right.
You have to really, really you're not even a factor in the conversation. To go something like this before they even say anything, when you're bringing everyone to the table, in this example that I just gave, let's just say it's not even a process improvement. It's just an update call. And it's not, things aren't where they want to be. I would think of things that I could do to make the situation better. And I would have done homework on that before I join that meeting. I would start with that and something empathetic like, I understand we're supposed to be at 35 right now, we're at 10. That is not acceptable. These are the things that I've researched to address this, and here are some ideas for you to consider. That will go such a long way when they didn't even have to ask.
Yeah.
There might still be tension, but you're going to have a lot more success bringing down the temperature with that approach. And that's the same for if you just flip that around to the proactive process improvement piece that we were using before and deciding where the bottlenecks are, all of continuing this example as step 3. It's the same thing. You just look at it through their shoes and do as deep a dive into their perspective as possible and represent that in your initial communication. That will go a long way to show them, wow, they're doing this project and they're leading it, but they're really doing it for the proper people and keeping me in mind. It's going to go a long way. That's from my experience.
Okay. I really like that. I do. Getting ahead of it.
Yeah.
The next step is test the waters before rolling out a big change. Test it with a smaller group. So, for example, if you're introducing a new mentorship program, start with one department. See what works and what doesn't. then refine the program before expanding it.
Love it. I think it's most fruitful to get yourself prepared to encourage honest feedback and really do something with the feedback. And if you're in a situation where you get feedback from your test group that you can't do anything about, I think it goes a long way to give some context to that. An example would be, we would like this in our application process, or we'd like this in our performance review process. And performance reviews are such a hot button topic. We'll be doing other episodes on that. But just for this application of the information, if you can't do something with the feedback that you've gotten, I think it really goes a long way to go back and give context as to why. Thank you so much for your input on the performance review process, but our company really doesn't want to make that better, so we're not going to do it.
Right. Straight up.
I would, but Joe, who's at a VP level and I'm only a director, won't let me, whatever it takes.
I'm not the bad guy. Don't point the gun at me.
Throw Joe right under the bus. No.
Right under.
In whatever way you can, just to give them some context and letting them know that you truly did your best. Whatever you can do to go back to the people who gave you feedback. Number one, it's just the right thing to do, and it's the high EQ thing to do. But the second thing is, are you ever going to be asking for their feedback again? You want to make that something that was worth their time, or guess what? They're not going to want to do it again.
That's right. Okay. I love this. All right. The next step is keep it balanced. Sometimes new processes or policies can accidentally create more work for the employees or managers. For instance, if HR asks managers to complete long, detailed evaluations, they might spend less time actually supporting their teams. Instead, ask, how can we streamline this task to save time while still getting what we need?
Yes. When you're approaching, in this example, workload redistribution, always think about it with empathy and recognize that different employees have different capacities and strengths. And if you're in a management position, you can do something about this. If you're on the receiving end, you're overloaded, then that's an episode that we've done on advocating for yourself, and we'll talk more about that another time. But for sake of this example, whatever level you're in your role, any changes that you're making, you, again, keeping everyone else in mind, and in whatever capacity you're able to explain the reason behind the changes and acknowledge that, for example, if you know somebody's taking on a piece of this new process and they already have a lot going on, even if you can't do anything about it, you can at least acknowledge it and then say, we'll do everything we can to support you during this transition, and we'll keep working on that. Just those types of acknowledgments, I think, go a long way. But absolutely, if you can keep it balanced and you have the ability to do that, that is even better, to just keep other people and their workload and how this affects them in mind.
Yes. The final step is to check your results. After making changes, don't just assume everything is fixed. Ask, is this really helping? For example, if you had launched a new employee recognition program, are people feeling more appreciated, or is it missing the mark? Then you'd want to adjust as needed.
Yes. There's so many programs that are rolled out where it really comes down to leadership made a decision. They want to justify it. Really, the game becomes, let's all pretend this is great even when it's not. I have to call that out.
Right. Absolutely.
It really depends on your role. So if you are someone who has the capacity to change that, really doing as much as you can to advocate for your people. And if you're listening to this podcast, you definitely are that type of person, but the other people who are just selfish jerks and just care about themselves aren't listening. So probably not going to change much, but anything you can do to earnestly there could be success in it, or there could be, we made this choice with the best that we had at the time, and we have to make the best of it. I think it's so much better just to acknowledge that and to work with your people to make the best of the broken
Yeah.
new process, rather than pretending it's fine and not listening to, what they have to say. In this case, if you're checking your results, the more you can be vulnerable and honest while balancing that giving context and making the best of things, I think that more down to earth way is the better way as far as your EQ is concerned. Even if you can't change anything, that acknowledgement, I think, is a key piece in making your reputation what you truly want it to be, and your trustworthiness as optimized as possible without shooting yourself in the foot with the higher ups.
Right. I agree. I think it shows your vulnerability and your empathy, and you'll get more respect, I feel.
Yes.
I love it. I think this was a really good discussion, Allie, especially for our anxious achievers, because being proactive is going to kind of calm them down and have them prepared to tackle whatever gets thrown at them.
I realized through coaching how much this has helped me as an anxious achiever. Being proactive, it gives you that sense of control.
Absolutely. Janet Jackson style.
It's not a sense of being controlling, it's getting that sense of control because you're reducing the level of uncertainty. So you feel empowered and you don't feel helpless if you prepare. And when you bring in that EQ, you're going to get a better reaction from approaching it in that way most often. Speaking very broadly there, that's what I found in my experience. And then when you can make a tense situation go better by preparing for it, that's a real confidence booster at work in my mind.
I agree. It's a win.
Yeah. And then that way you'll feel encouraged and you won't feel overwhelmed. You have a more predictable hypothesis on your outcomes. And then when you start to implement the proactive approach and see how it works, you can always refine and tweak. It really defines and refines your approach, and it gives you that positive feedback to be able to do it again. It's a template to be able to customize to each situation.
Yes.
And then you're going to grow
You're growing.
and you'll be more resilient.
Absolutely.
Think of all that comes at you when you're in a situation where you're being reactive. It doesn't, to me, in helping people with that, going from reactive to proactive, they start to realize that they didn't even know that it was a reactive way of living, but it's kind of floating along. I don't think it really feels good, especially if you're an anxious achiever.
No, it feels like it's just piling on and you're just
Yes.
sorting through it, just trying to survive.
Yeah. Almost like swimming and you're feeling more and more heavy, trying to
Yeah, like
keep above water.
somebody's throwing a ball at you. You're trying to dodge a little kid ball, a light ball, not a basketball or a football.
How does
Like
that make you
a pickleball.
how does that make you feel more weighed down?
You're dodging it, you're trying to swim, and these balls are coming at you.
You're living in a video game.
Somebody throws a brick in there. It's too much. You're just trying to go for a casual swim, doing your laps.
Were you saying that you're more like dodging because things are coming at you?
Too fast, and you're just trying to do your work and get things accomplished, and people are playing dodgeball.
Oh my gosh, I misunderstood because I was saying about heaviness and I thought you were saying
Well,
the
that
ball was like
too.
dragging you down, and I'm like,
There's
a
balls.
pickleball's not going to drag
You've
you
got
down.
ankle weights. You're
Yeah.
trying to stay above the water.
No, you're right. You're right about it does feel
That's
like
how I
that.
see it.
You're dodging things and being weighed down.
Right. It's all coming at you. I feel like when you're being proactive, you've got your swimmies on. You might
Yes.
be in a nice floaty and you can handle it. You can catch the ball. Being proactive, you're prepared. You can stay above the water.
You nailed it. With the catching the ball, you're prepared for the pickleball to be coming at you, and you just reach out your hand and grab it like a champ because you
Right.
prepared for it.
Right. And it's like, why is there a pickleball in the pool? I don't know, but at least I'm prepared for it.
Right. Right. I love that.
I know it's goofy.
No, it's brilliant. I just didn't understand in the beginning why the ball was dragging you down when it was so little, but coming at you makes so much more sense. You're ahead of your time, Jennifer. You're ahead of your time. The biggest nugget to remember as far as being proactive, focus on solutions and really working that muscle and training your brain to think, what can I do to fix this rather than why is this happening? In being as much in that problem solving mindset. And that doesn't mean you don't need to stop and vent or acknowledge that it's not fair or the pieces are frustrating at all. It just means you're only going to benefit yourself and the whole situation as you're doing all of this to focus on putting everything aside and laser in on what is the solution. And that goes to all the little bumps that are going to come up because you can prepare for as many as you want. There's going to be some curveballs. There's going to be some curved pickleballs. Whoa, where did that come from?
But you'll have your racket with you
Yes,
in the pool.
that's right.
So you're prepared and you can do this.
I love it. Awesome.
Well, thank you for these nuggets. I feel like it's setting our listeners up for success on how to
Yes.
tackle some of these issues.
I feel excited about it too. And
Yeah.
that you can really think about all these little things that happen at work each day. And these types of things I think are useful for even if you just take bits and pieces and try them out.
Right. Test the waters.
The swimming pool waters.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much to our listeners for joining us. We cannot wait to hang out with you again next week when we continue our habit series. But in the meantime,
Have a great week, everyone.
see you soon.
See you soon.
Bye.
Bye.